This episode is brought to you by Uplift Marketing Group. Are you an independent practice struggling to stand out in a crowded market? Uplift Marketing Group specializes in helping independent physicians and medical practices grow their patient base and thrive. From targeted physician liaison services to tailored marketing strategies, they're dedicated to elevating your practice's visibility so you can stay focused on patient care. Let Uplift Marketing Group help your practice reach new heights. Visit upliftmarketinggroup.com today. You're listening to the IndeDocs podcast, where we discuss important issues related to our mission to preserve, promote, and protect the practice of independent medicine. Thank you for tuning in.
Welcome to the IndeDocs podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today I'm going to talk to Dr. Morris Brown, who will share some of the ways he has managed to leverage his practice to significantly help its profitability as well as its patients, and how we can do the same. Today we are going to discuss specific codes and policies, but kindly remember that these change frequently, so you will be best served if you double-check this information prior to implementing it. These are our individual opinions and should not be taken as professional legal, medical, or financial advice. I'm Dr. Dede Waring. I'm an endocrinologist in Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm on the board of IndeDocs. Also on our board is my friend, Dr. Morris Brown. So Morris, tell me about yourself.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor and privilege to serve with you and to be here. Give you a little background on myself. I was born and raised in a small town in Smithfield, Virginia. I always wanted to be a doctor, had a great role model, and my intentions were to always, quote unquote, go back home. But after finishing undergrad, medical school, residency, my small town became a big suburb of Hampton Roads. Now it's about 5 million people that live there. And I was always wanted to go to a small town. I married a country girl. We both agreed that we want to live in a rural area. So I looked at North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and I wanted to be near the coast. And long story short, I ended up in a small town called Lake City, which is a population of about 8,000 people. And it's been the best decision I ever made. Good people, good patients, just a great place to live and practice. I've been here about 30 years now, and I never look back.
That's wonderful. So you went into medical school, and unlike most of us, you actually went into what you decided the minute you started medical school, what you were going to be. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. Like I said, I had a great role model growing up in a small town. We didn't have a bunch of specialists. The family doctor did everything. He sutured you. He treated heart attacks. He treated it from the womb to the tomb. It was just great seeing medicine practice the way he did. But, the reality of it, when I got exposed to medical school, like a lot of us, we exposed to other things and great opportunities. And my mentor in medical school was a cardiologist, and I never forget it, because it did bother me that there was a discrepancy in the compensation, where specialists will make sometimes 3 to 4 times much as a primary care doctor with the same amount of work. But my mentor explained it to me. He said, look, you're going to be a physician. Number one, you're going to help people no matter what you do. So I said, great. That's what I want to. He said, at the end of the day, the dollars will not amount to anything. He said, for example, he said, a BMW. You look at the parking lot at the hospital. Everybody got a BMW. Okay. You might have BMW a 325, and the endocrinologist might have BMW 535. At the end of the day, what does that matter? It doesn't. And I thought about that, and I said, you know what? He told me. He said, you need to do something that makes you feel happy, makes you feel fulfilled and enjoy. So that's why I stuck with primary care and never look back. And I guess we're going to deal a little bit later and talk about this, but as we well know, and again, let me preface this, honor and privilege to be a physician, and I consider you a colleague, but what I found in medicine is that you and I can have an intelligent conversation, have an intelligent outcome, but what I found is that the more physicians you get in the room, we start bickering about things that are really irrelevant, and it loses scope on the big picture, and that's why we're in this situation now. Well, that's why we have IndeDocs. It has become corporate medicine.
Right.
Instead of us sitting there rationalizing, addressing issues, and taking care of the patients, we have allowed healthcare to be turned over to businesses. And that's unfortunate. I did not go into medicine for that. That's why I have been independent and love being independent. You look at the dentists haven't done that. The chiropractors haven't done that. And we're going to talk later about things you can do to survive. At the end of the day, my head hits the pillow, I go to sleep. I'm concerned about employed physicians. If you're employed, even though you have a contract, you can be terminated within 15 minutes.
Right.
And then you have to get your lawyer and their lawyer, and you fight it out. If I'm going to be employed, I'm going to know 6 to 12 months in advance, things are not looking good. Okay. And I will be candid with my staff, my patients, and may come up with a plan B. I consider that security. I mean, from my perspective.
Well, you're definitely in charge of your life, and I can't wait to hear about the financial piece later on. In the meantime, I'm just curious. You said Lake City, South Carolina has 8,000 population, 8,000. Is that correct?
Yes, and probably a draw about 100,000 people in the surrounding community.
Oh, okay. So you just got a lot bigger right there. So how many primary care doctors are in Lake City in addition to you?
It's still considered a health profession shortage area. Approximately about 5 of us. And we have some nurse practitioner PAs that are helping us in our offices.
So 5 physicians for a draw of 100,000. Is that correct?
Approximately. But everybody's busy. We all have plenty to say grace over, so we're pretty busy.
And in your practice, who is there with you? Do you have anybody practicing in your physical office with you, or is it just you in the office?
Well, I have a satellite office also in King Street, South Carolina, which is about 15 miles south of Lake City. And it's another rural community. And there was a greater need even there than Lake City. There's a nurse practitioner and a physician assistant. And we rotate through the office. 2 providers are in Lake City office and 1 is in the King Street office. And we use the team concept.
That's great. So how have you chosen to structure your practice?
I had to change with the times and be adaptive. But as a result of being in a small town, as we always say, we treat patients from the womb to the tomb. So you have to be adaptive. So as my practice has gone along, there's some things I've added and some things I've subtracted. Like now with the technologies, I've added some things to supplement the practice. Because 30 years ago, I was told that this healthcare system could not sustain the current system. It would go bankrupt. And I really believe that. But still, we're still doing the same thing. It's still, in my humble opinion, it's sick care and not health care. We have these healthcare organizations. The sicker you are, the more money you make. Matter of fact, I even talked to a hospital CEO one time. He told me his heads in the beds, the more money they make. And unfortunately, the model is have the primary care physicians refer to the specialists to do these high-cost procedures and generates revenue for the hospital. And that's sick care. But now, in all the fairness, and this is controversial too, I know CMS is way behind on some things, but they are truly trying to change the game. They are doing things with what's called ACOs, accountable care organizations. They are starting to reimburse primary care doctors, preventive care, quality of care measures, and everything. And that's what I went into medicine for. So I'm happy. I love the change. Unfortunately, it's slow. And the process is not as fast as I would like, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And if most physicians sit down and be honest with themselves and then change to the current environment, they can prosper. But that's purely my opinion.
Well, I'm glad to hear these things exist for primary care medicine because we are not being reimbursed for that in endocrinology. And I could not agree with you more that preventive care is what we get up in the morning to do. If I'm seeing a patient and avoiding dialysis and the heart attack and the stroke, then I have done my job. But unfortunately, you are correct that we're not currently financially rewarded for that part of our practice.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to a day in the life. Do you wake up at the crack of dawn? When do you wake up?
Now, I'm a country boy, so I get up anyway. But when I'm on vacation, I get up 4:30.
Wait, oh my God, that's before the chickens, Morris. What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, no one's awake and no one's office is open at 4:30, and you've absolutely frightened me. So then what happens? Are you going to the gym? Are you like fixing breakfast for the whole community? I mean, what are you doing at 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah. I'm a morning person. I come to the office when nobody's here, it's quiet, and do paperwork, catch up on messages and everything. So when the staff, I open my office at 8 o'clock. We go from 8 to 4:30. So by the time it's 8 o'clock, when the staff comes in, the patient's here. And I actually believe it or not, the patients get here 7:30. They figured it out that they get here at 7:30. They can get in and get out because they have things to do and they need to go to work and got other obligations. So it works out. And the beauty of it is that, like I say, I have catered my practice now after 30 years. It's not really work. It's like family and friends day. I know that medications by heart. I know them 4 or 5 generations deep. Then you spend another 15, 20 minutes enjoying. I mean, it's family. I get more of the relationship than they do. It's really not work. So that's the beauty of primary care, in my opinion.
Well, I think you just described the joy of being an independent doctor right then, right there. That is a wonderful encapsulation of why we do what we do. And I could not agree with you more. But I am not letting you off the hook with this 4:30 to 8:30 business. So what time do you physically walk in the door of your practice? And not that your patients are going to listen so that they start queuing up at 6:30, but what time do you go through the back door of the office?
About 6:30. I'm usually here about 6:30. 6:30. Again, I just doing paperwork, quiet time, get my stuff together. I work out in the evenings, the afternoons, after getting off of work.
Okay. All right. So how many people are you seeing in your day from 8:30 to 4:30? How many patients on average would you see?
On average now, I have downsized. I probably see 25 to 30 patients now. But my first 20 years of practice, I saw about 45 people. I mean, it was a need. Yeah, I didn't want to do it, but in a small town, I mean, what are your options? You cannot turn it, in my opinion, I cannot turn down a sick patient.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, transportation is the issue. It wasn't by design. Hey, when I got here, one of my mentors was here. He saw like 60. And I told him he was a crook. I said, what? No way in the world you can do that. But hey, don't ever criticize a person until you walked in his shoes. And this was one of the greatest guys. He had the same problem I have. It's hard to tell a sick person no and reject them. You have, our generation, we go home, we work until the work is finished, and then you go home. He took care of his community. So unfortunately, I feel in that out of necessity to take care of the community. But now that I have help with a nurse practitioner, PA, I'm not rushed. I'm not churning, burning patients. I'm very comfortable. I got a pace. Sometimes it takes, 10 minutes for a patient. Sometimes I spend 2 hours talking about a recipe, or gardening, or hunting, or fishing, or something. It varies from person to person. Nobody's rushed. I'm not rushing. The patient's not rushed. So it evens out.
That is great to hear. So do you have to cover any hospitals or any other kinds of settings, or is it just your rotation through either Lake City or in Kingstree? And is Kingstree still the capital of barbecue? I'm just wondering.
Depends on who you ask. They have Brown's Barbecue there. We have Scranton Schoolhouse in Lake City, so it's a few going on. I don't know. You got to give it a taste test.
And I imagine that is not something you want to get out on this podcast, what your preference would be?
No, I'm neutral. But
okay, Switzerland.
Yeah. But like I said, out of habit, I get up at 4:30 now. I used to make rounds at 4:30. I used to go to Carolinas, where it's MUSC now. It used to be Carolinas Hospital System. I would get up 4:30 and had about 20 patients, make rounds there, and then come here in Lake City. But when I opened my office in Kingstree, it took me an hour commute to get from Florence to Kingstree. And on top of that, the administration changed, the dynamics changed, it became more corporate. And the EMRs came, as you well know, which is good and bad, where I can see 20 inpatient, in a few hours. With that EMR and with its coding system and the bureaucracy, it would take me 4 hours to round. There's no way I could spend more time in the hospital than taking care of my patients in the office. So unfortunately, I gave up inpatient care about 10 years ago, and now I concentrate on outpatient.
Okay. All right. So 10 years ago, that's when you made the switch. Okay. That's interesting to know. And then you've already answered one of the questions that was on my mind, but I'm going to ask it with a little twist here. You said that you get into the office at 6:30, and you start seeing people around 8:30. How much time do you spend, not just right now on administrative work, but is that more or less now compared to prior years?
I spent about an hour admin time. It's been about the same. I'm more of a hands-on kind of manager. Actually, probably the office manager also. A lot of things I do personally because I learned from a mentor. I know I have a great friend who lives in another small town. Guy went back to his family doctorate, went back to his hometown, practiced thriving practice for 30 years, and the IRS closed it down. And I asked him why, and he gave me some advice. He said, look, make sure you sign all the checks in your office, and ultimately you're responsible. It's not your accountant and not your bookkeeper. He got behind on his taxes, and I learned from his mistakes. So I actually do my own payroll, which honestly only takes about 5 minutes every 2 weeks. Once you get it down pat, I do all my account payables personally. I sign the checks. I use QuickBooks, but it's not as bad. And I actually enjoy doing it because I know when something's not looking good, I know that day it's not going to take 6 months, 12 months. I know well in advance. And, it might be micromanaging, but I enjoy doing that. The answer to another relevant question, though, is when I started out 30 years ago, my overhead was 15%. 15% when I had paper and paper charts. Now, as you well know, it ranges from 60 to 65% overhead, which is ridiculous.
Wait, you're 60 to 65 for a well-heeled, very low overhead kind of practice? That's still 60 to 65 for you?
I riched it down and got it down to about 50. Okay. There's some things you can do, which we'll talk about later. But if a primary care, and I tell these guys, we have to stop moaning and groaning and be honest with ourselves. Okay. You got to sit back and think, what is the problem? If you're going to continue just to see patients, okay, the reimbursement has gone down every year. It's horrible. It's not fair, but it is what it is. You cannot survive just seeing patients, $45 per reimbursement. The insurance companies are exploiting us. It's just impossible with that kind of overhead. So you have to shift and change with the times and embrace quality of care, health maintenance.
All right, so let's go there. Let's go there and tell us about how you've been able to leverage your profits and how you've been able to be a successful family medicine physician. All right, so this is obviously something that primary care knows about, but people like me as a specialist don't know anything about chronic care models. Can you take some time to tell me what does that mean? Who reimburses you? What does that look like? And how has that changed what you're doing?
Okay, that's a good question. And actually, this helps specialists also because, as you well know, you're practicing primary care when you don't want to practice primary care. And there's an endocrinologist in South Carolina who's a friend of mine. And even though he's a specialist, he has 900 chronic care patients. Okay, so we're going to talk about it briefly. We're going to dig deeper if you want to. But the three things I tell every primary care doctor, if you're going to survive, you're going to have to do three things. You cannot just see patients and go home. You're not going to pay your bills. It's just simple as that. You have to add chronic care management called CCMs, RPM, remote patient monitoring, and you have to also add services what's called TCM, transitional care management. Okay, for an example, let's talk about chronic care. Chronic care, and I probably need a slideshow, but just remember these codes. As a rural health clinic, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, another key to my success was becoming a rural health clinic in a rural setting. Because as you well know, Medicaid does not pay the bills. And in rural settings, Medicaid is my primary payer. But you can survive because the government has come up with a program called Rural Health Clinic Certification, where you're in an underserved area, they will reimburse providers 3 times more than the regular fee schedule per patient. Yeah. So you can survive that way. That was a game changer. But just seeing fee-for-service Medicaid is no way. The numbers cannot add up no matter how you can get any account you want, but you're not going to pay your bills. So I realized my first year that I was going to become a rural health clinic. Yes, ma'am.
Is that only for Medicaid or is that a Medicare or do you know what the rules are on that?
Good question. That is for Medicare and Medicaid, which in primary care, Medicare pays the bills. Okay. I have probably about 10% of my practice is commercial, Blue Cross, Aetna, United, which is a good thing in my humble opinion. So with Medicare and Medicaid, the reimbursement is 3 to 4 times the regular fee schedule for Medicaid.
So was that an onerous process to qualify for that distinction? What
No,
kind of, no? Did
not
you have to
really, not
prove
really.
how many?
It is if you try to reinvent the wheel and do it all over again. Yes, what I learned, I hired a consultant, paid him a flat fee, and told him this is what I want to do, and I want to do it in 3 to 6 months, and he did it. He was experienced. He knew what he was doing. Now, if I had done it, it would have taken about 10 years, and it might not, still might not have made it. But you had to lean on people knowledge. And another advice I would give physicians, I always tell physicians is we're taught, country people taught this. Nobody has more interest in your money than you, period. And if someone is interested in obtaining a consultant, I would recommend contacting the National Association of Rural Health Clinics, which is a national organization that has an immense resource of referrals for consultants and guidelines for establishing a new rural health clinic and for established rural health clinics.
That's great.
So I hired a consultant. I said, sit down 30 minutes and teach me how to do this. Then I hired staff to do it. And when that's a problem, I walk 5 steps down the hall and fix it immediately. That was game changer. But anyway, getting back to your point, for example, chronic care management. Basically, the code is G0511 for a rural health clinic. And if you're fee for service, it's 99490. Okay, so what does that mean? Basic chronic care is going to pay you. This is non-face-to-face service. This is none of your time. You hire a LPN, a nurse, RN, a CNA, or a CMA. They have to practice under your license and spend 20 minutes addressing a chronic condition. You have to have 2 chronic care conditions: hypertension, diabetes, dyslipidemia, arthritis, heart failure. Something's chronic that's going to last 12 months out of the year or until death. Also, you need to see the patient at least once a year. You have to have a relationship with the patient. So my patients love it. My CNA is right down the hall. She works in the office. The patient, we call them once a month to check on them. Like your diabetes, most of my patients are diabetic, hypertension, dyslipidemia. Hey, Ms. Jones, how you doing? How's your blood sugar? How's your blood pressure? And we call them once a month. We review the medications. Has a special written any medication for you. Review it. It takes 20 minutes. If you document it, Medicare will reimburse you. Get this, $74 per patient. So do the numbers. Currently, I have 500 patients. 74 times 500 is $37,000 times 12. Just 500 patients equal $444,000.
How often can you do that?
Once a month.
Once a month you can do that?
Every month. For every month. So listen though, here's the key. It's good patient care. Also, the studies have shown that the chronic care, it lowers hospitalizations by 20%, it decreases ER visits by 13%, and it saves the government money. The insurance, they love it. And it's better care for patients. The patients love you checking on it. Instead of episodic care every 3 to 4 months, we're catching up blood sugar. We got a protocol. As a person's blood sugar has been greater than 200 3 days in a row, we actually initiate a visit. Sometimes they have to come in or we do a telehealth visit. You don't wait till, 3 months and the patient DKA in ICU.
No, look, I mean, we're doing this already. Unfortunately, I'm not getting paid for this. So you're giving me some good ideas. And I hope that specialists get to do this too. I don't know what the rules are, but this is kind of fun for me to learn about.
Now, here's the key. Specialists can do it. They can do it. Like I said, this endocrinologist is doing it in South Carolina. And I asked them, I said, aren't the primary care guys upset with you by taking, because only one doctor can bill per month. You got to get a verbal commitment that the patient agrees to do it. There's a copay, a 20% copay. But once the patient engage and buy into it, they love it. They check into the portal. They look at the care plan. They got any questions. I mean, they actually think you're giving them special attention, which we are. We check it on them every month. And there are specialists who are doing this because the primary care physicians, unfortunately, have not embraced it like they should, in my opinion.
That is very, very interesting. I would like to learn more about that personally. And I think that gets to what you were saying earlier, that this is how you do preventive care.
It is.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
If your business or organization would like to connect with thousands of physicians and other medical professionals across South Carolina, we invite you to apply to join the IndeDocs sponsorship team. Various sponsorship levels are available, and each one helps support our mission to promote, preserve, and protect the practice of independent medicine. For more information, please visit our website at IndeDocs.com. That's IndeDocs.com.
So, Morris, I'm sure there's wonderful data out there that proves how much money you're saving the government based on these chronic care models that you're doing. I'm wondering, can you also compare that to what a hospital model would be charging?
Absolutely. I think an independent doctor will save the patient and the healthcare system a significant amount of money. For example, a common code for office visit routine is a 99213. The reimbursement for a hospital setting physician office would be $116. It will cost that patient and the system. However, if they see an independent doctor like us, it's only $46. Another thing patients don't realize is that as an independent doctor, I can refer you down the street to an independent radiology center and get an MRI of your head for $500. However, they go to an employed physician in a hospital setting and have that same MRI in a hospital setting, it's up to $5,000. It's a significant savings by going to see an independent doctor.
Well, that's fantastic information. So to review that, because that was a lot of information, Morris, and for people who would not understand that, you're saying that the code is, it's a face-to-face 20-minute.
No,
it
no,
can be.
Correction, not face-to-face. Takes none of the physician time. They have to be under your supervision, as licensed professional, under your supervision, so you continue to see patients. They're catering to patients. If somebody's blood sugar's out of whack, they're going to come to you before 3 months and say, hey, you need to see Miss Jones a little bit earlier because she's about to go into DKA. And it prevents the patient from hospitalization. It doesn't take any of your time other than the consultation when something breaks the protocol that you establish in your office. Now, again, there are companies. All you can do is Google it, chronic care. There are hundreds of companies out there. Now, here's my advice. Personal advice, purely my opinion. I've interviewed a lot of companies. I've looked at it. And going back to the original conversation, remember, nobody has more interest in your money than you. There are for-profit companies out there that will hire staff, they'll log into your EMR, and then what they end up doing is telling your staff what they need to do. They'll tell them, oh, Miss Jones need a mammogram, or Miss Jones need a colonoscopy. And we end up doing the work anyway. And another caveat, I got to admit, there's one colleague, a family physician in the upstate. He did half his practice with a subcontracting company that did the CCMs, and did the other half in-house. And guess what happened to him? The company, the subcontractor, overbilled. They could not justify the 20 minutes. You got to justify the 20 minutes. So guess what happens? Rightfully so, if you audited, you need to pay the money back. So guess what? The subcontractor company did not want to get the money back, so he was stuck. You need to be responsible. You need to learn the codes, follow the protocol and the guidelines, and you can do well yourself.
Well, but it occurs to me, as a person practicing in a rural part of the state, you're going to have a relationship with your patients that is built on trust and also knowing everybody's people in a small community. And so when you're saying that you need the buy-in from the patient and that because there's a small copayment to be delivered by them, can you tell me, when you're approaching your patients and you're saying, I've got this neat idea, it's called a chronic care model, you qualify because you've got hypertension, diabetes, dyslipidemia, whatever the things are, because I think you said you need two things over a 12-month period to qualify to participate in this sort of program. How is it that you sell this to your patients? Why is it that they wish to participate?
For the established patients, like you said earlier, I have a relationship with them and they understand our goal is to keep them healthy. When I get a new patient, a Medicare patient, or a Medicare Advantage patient also qualifies. And actually, I have heard some commercials. Now, I have not personally convinced a commercial Blue Cross anybody to do that, but I've heard some colleagues that have commercial insurance to pay for that because they realize that it's going to save them dollars and keep the patients healthy. So they buy in. But right now, it's definitely Medicare patients and Medicare Advantage patients. So when a new patient comes in, it's always a get acquainted visit. You get a relationship with them. And I explain it to them. This is a government program sanctioned by CMS. And the goal is to keep you healthy and to save them dollars in the long run. That's what we're all in the business of doing, keep you healthy. And the way we're going to do this, if you're agreeable, we're going to give you individual care plan to address your diabetes, hypertension. My nurse or nurse assistant is going to call you once a month to check on you. If you need anything, you can use the portal to email us or to let her know. And we're here for you. And it's an optional, it's purely voluntarily. You can participate or don't participate. And most of them, 99% of them say, I'm in for that. I like that. And the more they're in, the longer they're in, the more enjoyable it is because If we forget to call them or we get overwhelmed, they really remind us, you didn't call me last month. So it works out. It's a good thing.
That's great. That's a wonderful.
It happens. It happens.
So you've got a 99% participation rate. That's great.
Well, when I expose it to them, I haven't even recruited all the patients. These are the patients we see in and we think about it. We got a process now, and we're going to have a quality manager that's going to start focus on this a little bit more in detail. So we haven't even engaged all our patients.
Wow. All right. So when we first started out, how you have really leveraged your practice, you talked about chronic care management. I think we've done some justice to that topic. And then you were doing some remote patient monitoring. Can you tell me what does that mean? What are you monitoring? What kind of things are going on?
That's the complement to the chronic care. Two separate issues, but they kind of go hand in hand. It's all about keeping the patient healthy. Healthcare, not sick care. So our model has changed. Instead of seeing you every 3 to 4 months episodically in an acute crisis, we're into keeping you, maintaining your health and keeping you healthy. So, for example, I have a blood pressure monitor that has an app. My nurse explains it to the patient, puts the app on their phone. They check the blood pressure. Believe it or not, it goes to the website and it goes into their chart. And I can see, we review it once a week or more if we need to, and monitor the blood pressures. And believe it or not, as you well know, it prevents heart attacks and strokes by keeping the blood pressure under control. A lot of times, because we really only see a patient every 3 to 4 months, that's just episodic. But blood pressure goes up and down throughout the day. Sometimes people run out of medications. All kind of things happen. But it's not only blood pressure. Blood pressure, what I do in the office, but it can address any of those chronic things. It could be a scale, congestive heart failure patient. If you gain 5 pounds in one day, you might be going to heart failure. That can save the government a lot of money. It can keep you alive and keep you out of the hospital. A simple scale, believe it or not, a simple scale. If you condition them to do that, a pulse oximetry for heart failure, continuous glucose monitoring, blood sugar checks is definitely applicable to you. Blood pressures, but the product, again, the caveat is the product you use has to be FDA approved, which isn't hard to do. It has to be FDA approved. Other caveat I can tell you is that's a little bit harder to sell than the RPMs, the remote patient monitor, because in order to build, I'm breaking it down for you, run the numbers, just write it down. All right, just to know it, remote patient monitor, 99457, which is for 20 minutes of reviewing the data, reimburses $48. And then there's another code you bill, 99454, which you reimburses $46 for using the equipment that month. But the person has to have at least 16 readings out of the month, out of 30 days. If they do not use more than 16, you got to get the patient to buy in. If they do less than 16, you cannot bill for it. Okay, but if you do, what does that equate to? All right, 48 plus 46 is $94 per month per patient. Times 500 patients is $47,000. Times 12 months, that's an additional $564,000 revenue to your practice, non-face-to-face.
That's amazing.
Okay.
All right, I have a tough question for you.
Okay.
What if your patient doesn't have a smartphone? I presume you need a smartphone for this.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing. Yep, you're right. That's another, but I'll be candid with you. There's pros and cons to everything. In this rural setting, but most patients can engage, but they have what's these government phones, these subsidy phones, they call them Obama phones. And for some reason, I cannot put the app on those phones. It's a government phone and subsidized those. They have smartphones, but it blocks the app. So that is one of the challenges you have, but there's a workaround. They just write it down. Write it down.
And then they report it to your CNA or whoever calls them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then your CNA simply documents that in the chart to make it legitimate.
Yes, ma'am. They got parameters, something out of whack, out of the range. They'll notify me, and we'll get the patient early, see what's going on, why the blood pressure is suddenly going up.
Okay, so and you said it was 16 encounters to make it legit to be able to make that charge?
Right. So the patient started off really well doing blood pressure. Then somehow, unfortunately, they wane off and start checking in every once a week. So you got to get the patient to buy in. That's why I'm hiring a quality manager now to call these patients once a week to check on them and talk about their blood pressures. Well,
you must have thought about that decision to hire a quality manager quite a bit before you've done it. What pushed you in that direction? Were you not having adequate participation? Did you need a little prodding? What is it that a quality manager will be doing? And what skill sets? Do they have medical skill sets? I mean, who's a quality manager? How does that work?
Any licensed professional practicing under your guidelines, RN, LPN, CNA, CMA, as long as they're licensed.
Great.
The problem is I was short staffed. On the average, to be quite honest, to do a quality CCM, one CNA could probably manage 150 to 200 patients a month. After that, it's stretching it. Yeah, so I actually don't have the staff to perform maximum capacity, to be honest with you. That's why I'm going to get a quality manager to add on, then add some more CNAs to kind of quarterback this. Because this is all face-to-face. Once you set up the protocols and the staff knows what you're looking for, and everybody buys into it, it's a win-win for the patient, the staff, and the office.
Well, and that's very helpful to have a ceiling for people who might be listening to think, 150 people are a reasonable amount for my licensed professional in my office to manage. And so then they can use that for planning purposes of what this might look like given their certain patient population. So thank you. That's a wonderful way of looking at that. So, all right. So we've got 2 ways so far of adding some extra revenue, but also doing, the work that you went to school to do, which is preventive care and doing some fantastic stuff out in rural South Carolina. So we've talked about chronic care management, and then we talked about remote patient monitoring. I think the last one you wanted to talk about, unless you've got other tricks up your sleeve, Mars, in which case I'm dying to hear about numbers 4 and 5. But the next one was transitional care. Tell me, what does that mean? Or what are we transitioning from?
Okay, good question. So before we talk about transitional care management, let's recap. We talked about chronic care management and remote patient monitoring. Okay, let's keep a calculator. Remote patient monitoring has generated $564,000 a year. Chronic care management has generated $444,000 a year. So thus far, with 500 patients engaged, we have generated an additional $1,008,000. This is non-face-to-face patient care. This is a complement to what you're already doing to keep your patients healthy in the office. So the third and last issue I'd like to talk about briefly is called TCM, Transitional Care Management. And those codes are 99496. That's for checking a patient 7 days after discharge from the hospital. The next number is 99495. That's when you check on a patient face-to-face 14 days after the discharge. Okay? So the first code, 7-day code, is a high complexity code. If a physician sees the patient within 7 days after discharge from the hospital, the reimbursement for that one visit is $275. If it's a moderate complexity and you go beyond this 7 days and within the 14 days of discharge, the reimbursement is $203. Okay. The caveat is you have to, within 2 days of discharge, business days, someone from your office has to contact the patient via email, phone call, schedule follow-up. Also, you have to document the day of discharge in the office note when you see the patient. You have to have a relationship with the patient. So let's say, for example, if you just bill the 99495, that's $23 times 10 patients per month. That's $2,000 times 12 months. That's additional $24,000 for just taking care of the patient, seeing them earlier. Because the CMS has learned that they lose more money upon discharge. That is the most critical time for a patient to have a readmission. It's not good for the patient. It's not good for the doctor. It's not good for anybody. So they have learned and started rewarding us for providing good care. I'm not a CMS hater. I think CMS has done some great things, and I think they're doing all they can do in our favor. They just need to speed it up a little bit.
Well, Mars, how do you find out that your patient has been in the hospital? Is this the benefit of being in a rural area where everybody knows everything? Or are these people that are already in your chronic care management? And so your people call and they're like, oh, Lord, she can't get to the phone because she's in the big house. I mean, how do you find out people are where they are?
Man, you got some good questions. Now, this is another situation, but this is another podcast, a whole nother conversation when we talk about ACOs, Accountable Care Organizations, which I am thoroughly in favor of. The government has come together and said, you know what? We need to save dollars. We need to keep these people healthy, and we'll split the savings with you. which is unbelievable. They're going to reimburse you for keeping people healthy, not sick. So I am a part of an ACO, and we have a care coordinator that logs into all the surrounding hospitals that my patients go to. And when they know, they log in, they know when my patient is discharged. They email me, they call the patient. Within 2 days, they make an appointment in my office. They know, and they assist with the transitional care management.
Aha. So the ACO, they're taking some sort of percentage of your profits to offer you this service. Is this how this works?
Well, no, I am the ACO. We are the ACO. It's a group of primary care doctors with the ACO has gone in a relationship with CMS. There's no middleman. This care quality manager who calls these patients are part of our ACO. It's a staff member. They call not only my patient, but every physician practice in the ACO. So, but if you're not a part of ACO, you probably have to hire your office manager to log in to, Epic or whatever EMR and see what patient. They'll tell you, these programs will tell you who your patients are in the hospital when they were discharged. You can do it in-house if you want to, but because I'm a part of an ACO, it's less cumbersome for my office staff, and it's taken care of by the quality manager through the ACO.
It does sound like we're going to need another podcast on an ACO, Morris.
It's a whole nother. And by the way, the disclaimer: I do not represent any organization. I'm not a medical biller. I'm not an expert. And also, these rules, as you well know, change from month to month, year to year. So it's simple as Googling. You got to Google it and keep up with it.
Is that how you keep up with stuff? As you just put in the codes and see if it's popping back as you got that right. How do you figure that out? That's a lot.
Put in these codes, Google chronic care management. Now, another caveat is for our colleagues. There are a bunch of for-profit companies out there. Those sponsors on Google are going to pop up. They are for-profit and they want a percentage. However, the only opinion that counts is CMS because they're the ones that are going to audit you. They set the rules and guidelines, and I advise everybody to follow those guidelines.
Good point. You've got such great advice today. So, Morris, of the three things that you've mentioned, chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, and transitional care, which one do you think would be the easiest to start for our listeners?
Okay, the easiest is chronic care management because for an established patient, you already have the patient base. It's the greatest return for the patient. It improves the care. It saves the system dollars. And a great resource is the Academy of Family Physicians Management Journal. It is produced monthly. Google it, and there's a process that explains it from start to finish.
Awesome. And I think you've actually answered this question, but I had it written down, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think you made the right choice for you to practice in rural South Carolina?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. By the way, I don't have a BMW, but I'm still happy. But because at the end of the day, it's not all about, I know we're talking money, but the reason we're talking money is how to stay solvent to serve your people. I'm not by anywhere rich or anything like that, but I'm very happy. I'm at peace with what I have. And my mentor in medical school gave me the best advice. It doesn't matter what specialty, just be happy. Do what you love doing, enjoy doing, and stay true to the cause. That's why I'm independent. That's why we're having this podcast.
Well, Morris, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to educate me and educate our listeners. Final thoughts.
We need more independent doctors, period. If you sit back and look at the big picture, there are ways to survive and thrive even in this environment. And I think the healthcare system is finally realizing that we need to take care of patients in a preventive manner and keep them healthy. Keep the patient the top priority and everything will work out. Granted, it is a business now. I do understand that, but this is the world we live in. I think if we take advantage of the opportunities now available for quality measures and health maintenance, we can have a good outcome for the patients and our practice.
Well, I think this has been a very informative podcast. I am super grateful to you, Dr. Morris Brown, my friend, for this spotlight on you and helping all of us become a more successful independent doctor in practicing in the great state of South Carolina or wherever they may be practicing, because this is a lot of Medicaid, Medicare, which is going to be applicable to everyone. And to all who are listening, thank you for joining us. Please make sure to rate and to follow this podcast, as that's going to help us grow this community and spread the word about the issues we've explored today. And please tune in next time for another great discussion about independent medicine in South Carolina. From all of us at IndeDocs, take care and stay well.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the IndeDocs podcast. Our producer is Jenna Leaf. Promotional support by Uplift Marketing. Mixing and mastering by Noah Martin. Content editing by Jenna Leaf. Additional production support by Noah Martin, Rebecca Lockhart, John Robinson, and the IndeDocs Board of Directors. For more information, please visit us online at IndeDocs.com.